European Union commits $736 million in ODA for Vietnam in 2014. Public-private partnership model boosts FDI in agriculture. Hello, I'm Linh Hương from Hanoi and welcome to Bizline, your economic magazine on VietTV4. To kickstart the show, let's take a look at several highlights in the economic scene for the past week. The European Union has committed 542 million euros or $736 million in official development assistance to Vietnam this year, and the level of aid would also be maintained for the coming years. The information was announced at a press briefing on Wednesday as EU launched the Blue Book 2014, an annual report on the EU development cooperation in Vietnam. The EU would also sign the Free Trade Agreement, or FTA, with Vietnam before the end of this year as a way of supporting the country to develop its trade ambitions and international commitments. The EU has remained the leading provider of development assistance to Vietnam with a total of $619.8 million of disbursement last year. This year, the EU has focused on eradicating poverty among ethnic groups, which was featured in the Blue Book 2014. The country attracted $6.85 billion in foreign direct investment in the first half of this year, down 35% as compared to the same period last year. According to the latest report of the Foreign Investment Agency, of the total $6.85 billion, $4.85 billion came from 656 newly licensed projects, while the remainder was from 219 existing projects, which raised their levels of capital, he said. In a brighter spot, the period's FDI disbursement saw a modest increase of 0.9% and was estimated to touch $5.75 billion. The manufacturing and processing sector absorbed the largest share of FDI, touching $4.8 billion, or 70.2% of the nation's total registered capital. Construction and real estate trading industries ranked second and third, respectively. The first Vietnam-Japan high-level dialogue on agricultural cooperation took place in Hanoi on Thursday afternoon. Co-hosted by the Vietnamese Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and the Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, the event aims to lay the groundwork for a new period of agricultural cooperation between the two countries, during which Japan will help Vietnam set up value chains for its farming produce. With more than 70% of its population employed in farming, Vietnam views agriculture as a top priority in its development strategy. As part of the cooperation agreement, Japan will assist Vietnam with new technology, low-interest loans, and research projects to further develop Vietnam's agriculture sector. The southern province of Bình Dương has pledged to create more favorable investment conditions and ensure the province remains an ideal destination for foreign investors. According to the chairman of the Provincial People's Committee, the province had attracted $1 billion in foreign direct investment since the beginning of this year, and the figure for the entire year would be higher than in 2013. The chairman added that about 80% of companies affected by the unrest in May that broke out after China's placement of an oil rig in the sea have resumed production and were expected to return to full capacity. 1,000 out of 5,000 Taiwanese investors operating in the country are located in the province. The Vietnam-Myanmar Trade, Service and Tourism Fair, or Ho Chi Minh City Expo, opened on Friday morning in Yangon, Myanmar, with the participation of 80 enterprises from Vietnam and 20 enterprises from Myanmar. Vietnam enterprises are showcasing a wide variety of products, including processed food, plastic, household products, and electrical appliances. The event provides Vietnamese firms with a chance to seek partners and establish a commodity distribution channel in the Myanmar market. The fair is organized annually under the direction of the Ho Chi Minh City People's Committee and will run until June 30th. South Korean electronics giant Samsung announced its plan to invest $1 billion in a new project near its already operational facility in the northern province of Bắc Ninh. The provincial government has responded queries from the South Korean company as to what incentives the new project may enjoy when investing in the province. The company will be exempt from corporate tax in the next 4 years, and the tax rate will be halved in the following 9 years should it meet the high-tech standards as committed in the investment application. The Samsung Display project will include factories that will produce displays for different devices, including television and smartphone screens. Those are the highlights for the past week. Up next, we'll talk about public-private partnership in Vietnam's agriculture sector in our Crosstalk. Vietnam's agro products export turnover has seen a robust increase, reaching $28.5 billion last year. Despite that promising number, challenges seem to exist in attracting FDI inflows into the sector. 15 years ago, FDI into agriculture accounted for 15% of Vietnam's volumes, but the rate has been about 0.5 to 1% in the past 3 years. 3 years ago, the government of Vietnam, in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, has started to implement the public-private partnership or PPP model into agricultural sector. Today, we'll discuss the achievements and prospects of this model in Vietnam with our guest, Mr. Trần Vũ Hoài, Vice President Corporate Relations at Unilever Vietnam. But first, let's take a look at an overview of public-private partnerships or PPP in Vietnam's agriculture. Thank you very much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be here too.
Now, from your perspectives, what do foreign investors value in Vietnam's business climate for PPP models?
I think the most important thing that a foreign company is looking for in doing a PPP in Vietnam is really to see, a higher level of engagement and support and coordination from the Vietnamese government partner. I think that is the most important thing that differentiates from the other of, foreign businesses doing business in Vietnam.
Now, regarding business climate for public-private partnership or PPP projects, can you evaluate the advantages and disadvantages in investing in agriculture in Vietnam?
Yeah. I think from the perspective of a foreign investor, investing in agriculture in Vietnam is always an attractive thing to do because, we all know that Vietnam is still an agriculture country. 70% of the population still live in rural area. And of course, we all know that we have a lot of potentials in agriculture. However, investing in agriculture is a risky business because, there's a lot of uncertain factors. And these uncertainties, of course, plays a key role in the decision-making process of an investor doing business in agriculture in Vietnam. And because of these uncertainties, we want to have a more certain environment so that we can mitigate the risk in doing business in agriculture in Vietnam. And I think in that sense, a PPP plays a role because actually in a PPP, as I mentioned earlier, you can really see a higher level of engagement and support and coordination, both in terms of policies as well as in, practical. As a matter of fact, it will enable them to be more confident in investing in agriculture in Vietnam.
Currently, participating companies include IDM, Cargill, DuPont, Metro Group, Unilever, and Yara International. According to your perspectives, what do these foreign partners expect from Vietnam's business climate in sustaining and implementing PPP models in the near future?
Unilever is very happy and proud to be, the company that initiated and volunteered to lead the tea project because, we are actually the largest player in the tea sector in the whole world. And of course, we have been operating in Vietnam for a long time, since 1995. So definitely, we, Unilever, as well as other multinational companies, see our role in cooperating with the government in that regard. So first, it is very important and it is very meaningful. Now, what do we expect from that? Definitely is to really work very closely with the government. And in this case, that is the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, so that we can set, very clear objective, a very clear plan. The government and multinational companies and other businesses in Vietnam have only one common goal, and that is how we can contribute to the development of agriculture, but in a sustainable way.
You just talked briefly about Unilever, your company's PPP project in Vietnam in tea sector. Tell us more about other PPP projects and what practical experiences you have gained and the main results you have achieved.
First, I would like to talk about the tea PPP because we name it the Vietnam Tea Project, and and Unilever is the multinational that is participating in the PPP. It is unlike from the other PPPs, because in other PPPs there are more than one multinational companies working with the government. Now for the Vietnam Tea Project, we have a very clear objective. That is, we want to help Vietnamese tea households to increase not only the quantity but also the quality, because quality is very key. We want the farmers to improve quality so that they can achieve the export quality, because at the moment most of the tea in Vietnam is not up to the export quality, and that is why even though we have a lot of tea output, we cannot export as much as we want. We want to increase the imports of tea from Vietnam and integrate it into our global supply chain. So specifically, we would like to import about 30 to 35,000 tons of black tea from Vietnam. That is a very substantial number, because 30 to 35,000 tons of black tea equals to about 25% of the total Vietnamese black tea output. So you can see, the significance that the PPP creates. So that is the objective of the tea PPP. Now, how we are achieving that? We focus on two things. It is like a strategy with two key components. On the one hand, we work with selected tea processors, because there are a lot of tea processing facilities and factories in Vietnam. So we work with them so that we can help them with technical assistance so that they can really improve the quality of the tea produced from these factories. And that is the first component. And that is somewhat easier to do because, when you work with companies, of course, there are fewer companies to work with. And of course, they are specific. We have been working with them for quite some time. So the bigger part, and also a more challenging part, I can say, is working with farmers, because
so many
because they are everywhere, and of course because they are small households, so of course it is always more challenging to work with them. And we have developed a cooperation project with our global partners, and in this case it is IDH, a Dutch organization, and Rainforest Alliance, which is a technical assistance providing and sustainability certifying agency. Once you are certified as Rainforest Alliance, basically you are eligible for export. So we started the cooperation project in earlier this year in January 2014, and our objective is to work directly with about 20,000 households in 6 provinces in Vietnam. I mean, tea growing provinces in Vietnam.
And very large scale.
So it is a very large scale, because you can see, 20,000 households. It is quite a number. And we facilitate Forest Alliance to work direct with the farmers so that they can teach them on best practices for harvesting tea, for the use of pesticides and fertilizers, and other technical aspects, so that the farmers can really improve the quality of tea and improve the yields of the tea that they grow. So not only that they can produce better tea, but also they can produce higher quantity of tea at higher quality. And as a result of that, we can also help to improve their income as well. So that is the whole purpose of the cooperation project between Unilever, IDH, and Rainforest Alliance. Now, as I mentioned, for IDH and Unilever, we are global partners. So we are the sponsors of the project. We put in our funding so that Rainforest Alliance can have the funding to work with the farmers. As a matter of fact, a lot of training workshops have been done and conducted by the experts, and I think the initial response is very positive, because farmers do understand the benefits that, that they can have from participating in the program. Because I think ultimately they see that it will lead to increase in income and also, help them to improve the quality and the quantity of tea that they grow. So it has been very good.
Another great example of a PPP project was carried out by DuPont Vietnam and the Thanh Hóa Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. The pilot program successfully helped farmers in crop management and transfer planting techniques for particular types of hybrid rice in order to achieve higher yields. Piloted in only 10 hectares of land, the two hybrid rice seeds PHB71 and 27P31 are providing yields of 7.8 to 8.5 tons per hectare.
Tôi thấy cái năng suất nhìn thì thấy là hơn các cái lúa khác. Nghĩa là cũng không thấy khó khăn. Nói về cái sức đề kháng của cây lúa thì tốt hơn, thuốc sâu chứ cũng đỡ phải là phun hơn các cái thứ lúa khác. Thì cũng chưa cắt về nhà chưa biết nhưng mà thấy cái lượng bông này nó nhiều mà cái tỷ lệ chắc thì hơn nhiều hơn.
Since February this year, DuPont Vietnam have collaborated with Thanh Hóa Department of Agriculture and Rural Development to provide farmers with hybrid rice seeds to help improve rice quality and profitability.
Thì đây cũng là một cái mô hình rất là tích cực. Vấn đề thứ nhất là đã đầu tư được cái tiến bộ kỹ thuật mới vào sản xuất, có tiến bộ về giống, có ứng dụng các tiến bộ khoa học kỹ thuật đồng bộ về bảo vệ thực vật cũng như quy trình thâm canh, và bản thân bà con nông dân cũng được tập huấn, cũng được bồi dưỡng những kiến thức thâm canh. Do đó cho nên đây cũng là một cái mô hình rất là thuận lợi. Sở Nông nghiệp và Phát triển Nông thôn làm một mô hình này cũng là một hình thức kết nối doanh nghiệp, kết nối các nhà khoa học, kết nối với bà con nông dân, cũng như thể vai trò điều hành của nhà nước để thực hiện cái mô hình này.
Vietnam is now among the global leading rice exporters. Therefore, the PPP model, if it is promoted, will contribute to maintaining this position as well as the country's food security.
The PPP private-public partnership here in Vietnam is already ongoing from 3 or 4 years ago. And so we have an opportunity here to continue to strengthen that process by engaging more with the government, more with the private sector. We also are very pleased that MARD is actually beginning to adopt more technology, both in the input factor, which is seeds, fertilizers, and agricultural protection chemicals, as well as in the practices. How do you practice farming? And we are also continuing as DuPont, private sector, continuing to work with agencies like USAID, the US agencies, to bring in more technology into the farming practices.
According to both the Thanh Hóa Department of Agriculture and Rural Development and DuPont Vietnam, the hybrid rice field models will be expanded to other communes in Thanh Hóa province in the time to come.
Now, so how do government and ministerial policies play in that particular project and in other agricultural PPP projects?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we always have a policy. I mean, generally speaking, like in many other markets, policies are always policies. But, when you talk about actual execution, that is where the challenges, arise, because a lot of things that, we face on a daily basis. Now, so in that sense, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the direct engagement of the local partner, and in this case the government, is very key, because whenever we have an issue, whenever we face with a challenge, at least we have an outlet to present the challenge and then discuss with the government on how to solve it. And the government, and in this case the Ministry of Agriculture, has been very effective and supportive in that regard. As you know, we have regular meetings of the working groups under the task force, and it is, these meetings are chaired by the Minister of Agriculture himself. He's very dedicated and he's very committed to that himself. So it is good, and it produces results. Now, for tea, for example, about 6 weeks ago, the minister himself convened a plenary meeting among all relevant stakeholders, in the tea project, which includes Unilever, the People's Committee of the 6 provinces, where we do the cooperation project with IDH and Rainforest Alliance and, other key players, where we discuss in one place. It is like one-stop shop, all issues, all challenges, and all actions that we need to take together so that we can bring the project one step forward. And as a result of that meeting, the minister issued a decision where, he lays out what needs to be done, what are the roles of each, players, in that plan of action so that we can immediately implement what we want to do. I think that is very key.
Now, within Vietnam's agriculture sector, which group are most favorable to foreign investors, and which one is now facing the most obstacles?
In the task force, we identify, the 5 working groups, and then, we have the financial service working group added in, later on. I think the identification of these 5 priority working groups already show that they are favorable. And at the same time, it also means that they are the key sectors in agriculture, or the key crops or sectors in agriculture that, multinational companies, local Vietnamese companies, and the government must do a better job so that we can create higher value, so that we can really contribute to the improvement of livelihood for farmers in Vietnam. So I cannot say which one is more favorable. I think we are all in the same stage. Now, from the complexity point of view, of course, one working group can differ from the other because, coffee, for example, of course, it is a much larger sector because, coffee is really big in Vietnam. So maybe the complexity for coffee, will be a little bit different from the complexity of tea because in tea, as I mentioned, we only have one multinational, working with the government. Commodity is also huge because, we talk about different crops and the type of issues that, we have to deal for commodities differs from the type of issues that we have to deal, for coffee or for fisheries or for tea. So I think every group
has its own pros and cons.
Has their own, favorable and challenges. But I think we share the same goal that we want to contribute to sustainable agricultural development in Vietnam.
Recently, the Vietnamese government has shown particularly high interest in improving the business climate for PPP model by developing a master plan for PPP model in agriculture. Now, in your opinion, what do foreign investors expect in the newly developing business climate in Vietnam for PPP agriculture?
I think what we all look for is transparency. Because what is the purpose of a master plan and a policy? I think it provides transparency to all stakeholders so that we understand what we can do, what are the things that we need to be aware of whenever we decide to do a PPP in the country, and where we can go to for support, for example, if we face with challenges. So I think that transparency, as I call it, is very key.
To conclude, can you evaluate the prospects of developing business climate for PPP models in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think what the Task Force for Sustainable Agricultural Development in Vietnam has done, in a very short period of time, is to show that there's a way for the government and companies, multinationals and local companies, to work very closely together for the common for the common objective of benefiting the Vietnamese economy and Vietnamese consumers. I think it is an example, it is an early example of that, and I think it sets a very good example, and so that's the way of the future. That's the way that businesses and government will have to go to achieve a sustainable development in the country. There's only one word for that.
Well, thank you very much for joining our program.
Thank you very much. It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
With the participation of about 15 global companies, successful results from public-private partnership projects over the past 3 years have raised high hopes for a boom of FDI inflow into the sector in the near future. The model of public-private partnership, or PPP, for sustainable agriculture has been well adapted in major agricultural countries all over the world. The government of Vietnam and foreign businesses have the same goal to improve a sustainable development for agriculture and maintain food security for the country. And that's it for Bizline this week. Thank you very much for being with us. From our team here in Hanoi, goodbye for now.